So this is the closing panel for the inaugural LIAMforum. And with me on the panel, we have Liette Vasseur, a professor at Brock, who has moderated some of the panels, Frank Fueten, who's done the same, and Gerald Whittle, the CEO of Whittle Consulting, of a company I'm a partner in. And the three of them have been instrumental from the very beginning in shaping up this forum. Frank is the head of the department where my son, Liam Jacob, studied. And he has known about the story from the very beginning. The first question I would like to ask the three of you, are you surprised by what we have accomplished? So I'll start with Liette.
Surprised in some way, yes, but especially impressed. Impressed by the richness in the discussion, the depth of how people really interacted, and some of the very important messages that have come up from several of these sessions. I've not been able to do everything because of teaching and all that, but I should say that for me, I found that it was really kind of almost a stream of hope and opportunities that the audience can get.
Thank you, Liette. Frank?
Yes, I have to echo Liette's comments, and I'm totally amazed, given that I was indeed there from, when did we start? Sometime in February, probably, or early February, from the initial discussions to how we got to formulating the idea of forming this panel, to focusing on topics. And let's face it, a large amount of the credit is entirely due to you, Raziel, because of your tireless efforts and the large number of amazing connections that you've used. So I am totally impressed, and I'm actually really quite proud of what we've done. I think what we've created here is a long-term resource, especially as we're going to talk about how we're going to put these on the web, and I can see many uses for it, but I'll stop there. But yeah, it's been amazing.
And Gerald, to you, we at Whittle Consulting have been doing seminars around the world pre-COVID, and once COVID started, we started using Zoom and technologies similar to Zoom. What is your view as to, you saw this evolve? Initially we said we'll do a little webinar, and then things evolve. Can you give your comments as your perception as to what happened?
Yeah, look, Raziel and I have been friends and colleagues for a long time, and it's, I mean, we're all here for the wrong reason because of Liam's passing has motivated this. But what I've seen this week is, you know, restores my faith in the human race. I mean, the human race has got some very ugly sides. We see war and, you know, other things going on. But what we've seen this week is nothing but passion, sincerity, and what's stunned me is the capability, the broad range of creativity and that we've seen. You know, I mean, what an amazing group of people we've seen this week, and they come from all corners of the world and all disciplines and so forth. But nevertheless, I think we've seen the best of mankind this week in terms of positive sincerity and wanting to, you know, improve things. So it's been absolutely inspirational, and to think that this could arise in a matter of months, and I'd commend you, Raziel, for, you know, this did not happen in a few months. This is the result of decades of pursuing, you know, a mission on improving the world and building connections and trust with a very wide group of people. This is the culmination of, I think, probably your career as much as anything else, that this could be pulled together on such a short notice.
Thank you, three of you. To me, this is what research is all about, and Liette and Frank will relate as academics. But in business also, what we do at Whittle Consulting, we do our work and suddenly results come up. You diligently working, and then the facts and the technology you're using, something comes up that you did not expect, and you look at it and you say, how did we get there? And then you realize it's a jewel. Where Liam's spirit and the LIAMforum has gotten us is, we've discovered there's a huge gap in connecting younger people with sustainable resource development. In conversations with Liam, and I'm in the mining sector, and I used to go bring Liam sometimes to mining conferences where he was bored, totally bored, almost from the get-go. And I just didn't get it because there's no mechanism to communicate. We need to show them, and we've tried to do that in the LIAMforum, the wondrous opportunities for young people to engage with, from anthropology to zoology, through mining engineering, through geology, through biology, and helping in the certification. All these areas are open and are relevant, are deeply relevant if you want to help make the world a better place and deal with climate change, deal with environmental strain, and so on. And the message is, the world needs your values, your passion, your enthusiasm, your skills. And don't disengage from getting involved. And you've seen in the last 5 days, and you'll see the recordings when they're posted on YouTube if you've missed some of the sessions. There are so many avenues that will bring relevance to your role at university. Liam and many undergraduates, and myself included when I did my undergraduate study, how do you connect calculus to the real world, or organic chemistry? You're doing this, you're doing the lab, you're going through the process. They are connected in the sense that it doesn't really matter what you're studying, you're developing skills, and then you're gonna get involved in the sector. And today, the world needs you very much, because there are so many things. We have the climate crisis, we have energy crisis, we need to produce more metals, because if we don't have critical metals, we will not be able to have green energy, and so on and so forth. And in Gerald and I speak to many companies, and we had people, we had a panel on careers, both from the renewable energy side, on the environmental side, and on the mining side. In all of those areas, there's a shortage of people. The federal Minister of Energy and Mines in Canada expressed in the opening message of the LIAMforum his concern that there will not be enough people to fill the roles that must be filled for us to accomplish our sustainability goals. So this is an indication for you as to where we can be going. One of the panelists earlier on, Rob McEwen, who runs the mining company, when asked if he were 20 or 21 years old now, what he would consider, he said, look, it's very simple. I would consider areas where other people are not going, where there is a huge demand for people. And this is the sustainable resource development sector. Many people are not going there because they feel it's not for them, or it's bad for the environment, which is the contrary. The last thing I want to say is there's a university in London that last week, coincidentally, came out with a policy that they will refuse to allow the students to be exposed to jobs in oil, gas, and mining. Complete ban, which I think it is looking at things in the wrong direction. What we seek is open dialogue, and for people that are listening to me, decide on your own. Don't block yourself, and see the opportunities, and you'll make a decision on your own based on facts. So with that, I would like to ask my 3 panel members, so what do we do now? What are the next steps? And let's take it step by step. I've sent you a little email where I cover, let me read the chapters. It's evaluation of the LIAMforum. What went well, what didn't go so well, what could be improved, and what subject did we miss out presenting? Because we covered a broad range. The next is, what immediate steps? We will be probably writing to all those who registered, send a quick survey, ask them what do they think and what ideas they have for us. And anybody who's listening to this panel, more than happy to hear their voice. And the next point is we want to create a product that is helpful to students. I describe it as an ebook. Liette said, let's produce just one-page summaries of various topics, and we may do a combination of those things to follow up, to create for you to create the network, to provide the names and email addresses of the speakers, and so you can start interacting and networking and following up on your questions. And the last point is at Brock, even before we discussed the LIAMforum, we were discussing the creation of a sustainable resource development master's program at Brock, which is something we'll have to discuss beyond this panel, but to formalize. And the reason for such a program is to connect the bricks and mortars of a university with the real world, be it in government or in industry, to provide the skills to students so when they leave university and enter a job, they can immediately understand what it is to work within a team, work within a project. In the mining context or in any other context, within a feasibility study or a policy document that needs to be created. These are the skills relate to finding a mentor, and understanding, setting up your own goals. And these are practical skills combined with academic skills. So this is what we're trying to accomplish in that master's. So with that, I'm going to go back to the first point, which is evaluation of the LIAMforum. Which were the best aspects that you saw, and which aspects should be improved? Let me start again with Liette.
But the one that I liked a lot is especially messages that came up several times. And we already talked about them in terms of passion, networking, get all the opportunities that you can to acquire new skills, languages, everything. Never stop learning and explore. So really bring the issue of innovation, creativity, because everybody has a brain that is full of possibilities, and sometimes it's just we're probably a bit lazy in terms of not thinking about further than what we know. And I think students and everybody, in fact, can create something. It's something that we have to get used. In terms of what are we missing out, I think when we talk about natural resource management development, we've been especially looking at mining this time. I think we need to also look at further at agriculture, forestry, fisheries, because and you know, when you were talking about the Master in Sustainable Resource Development, I was thinking, when I think about that, you need ecologists, you need chemists, you need earth scientists, you need psychologists, you need policymakers, you need economists, you need marketing, and this is something it has to be integrated, it has to be interdisciplinary in all what we have. But when we look at that, these are all skills that can be applied in agriculture, in forestry, in fisheries, in mining, in oil and gas, everywhere. And especially, you know, we're talking mining, and it's true that if we don't have the metals, we'll have a big problem in terms of changing economy. But at the same time, where I know where we are facing a lot of other challenges is in agriculture, in fisheries. You know, when you have 56% of the world fisheries that are overfished right now and close to collapse, that will cause a lot of problems. The same with the fact that the agriculture, we're losing so much soil that many places will not be able to cultivate within the next 10 years. And even here in Canada, we don't need to go very far. And the same with the forest. We cannot continue to cut the Amazon. We know what it brings. So I think it's such, you know, I was thinking what we're trying to do is a real ocean wave, a tsunami of changes that can only start if we have the youth from the start, because they are the future.
Thank you very much. I just want to mention, we did have a panel this morning on the ocean, and we had a couple of panels dealing with agriculture and forestry yesterday, but there's only so much you can put in a week. Frank, what are your comments?
Yeah, I agree that we've done incredibly well, and I think one of the things that I think we've demonstrated is that the issues are fairly complex, and there are no easy, simple solutions, and that you really require a multidisciplinary effort with many stakeholders to solve them. And that, as Liette says, means that there's room for everyone. And I personally, I didn't attend each panel because I had other things to do as well that required doing. But I was really impressed by the diversity of people that were able to contribute. I think that is an encouraging thing for many people, because I think there are still young people who wonder, well, is this something that I would want to pursue? And really, I think what we've demonstrated is, yes, there is a place for you in this. And we've talked about the ocean, but I don't think if we want to go water, we don't need to go to the ocean. We can look at groundwater. The water right beneath our feet is in deep trouble across many continents. So there is sadly almost no topic that we can't touch with this, but I think we'll do fine. The other thing that I would like to see, and we've talked about, you mentioned university students and young professionals, and that's great. I would really personally like to see us involve high school students at some level, because ultimately that's where they make the decision into, what do I want to go to university for? And the awareness of the resource industry at that level is, at least in this country, pretty much negligible. And really, if we want to have young students coming into that industry, I think they need to be aware of that ahead of time. So I would really like us to try and find a way of including the high school age group in the future more.
Thank you very much, Frank. We had a panel with Doris Galvez, and Liette was the moderator. Doris is a senior engineer at Hatch. She chaired the CIM convention, which is a very important convention here in Canada this year. And she has this vision. She actually launched a program sponsored by Champion Iron Ore. She was going to fundraise, and the first mining executive she spoke to, here's the money, go and do it. To get high school students, no, this is middle school students, even before high school, to do science without constraints. Just do science. Do it 1 full week, just do whatever you want, just do it. Without instructions, just pure science. And these are initiatives that you're absolutely right, this is absolutely needed. We had a representative from Mining Matters, which is a nonprofit in Canada that goes and trains high school teachers, and goes to high schools, goes to indigenous communities, high schools, to teach them about earth sciences and the role of mining in society. All these things we need to multiply. We need to escalate them, and they are hamstrung by small budgets, by pilot level programs. We must institutionalize that. If we are going to achieve, and we just had a panel before this panel, we had somebody from the federal government on the federal government's sustainability policy, and I suggested to the functionary about organizing, and I'll talk about, speak about with you later, doing a LIAMforum just on educating young people about this federal initiative to implement it, because I wasn't aware of the details until this panel. I mean, and everybody should know about it, because what are the chances you're going to implement those policies if people are unaware of those policies? This is not the tax code. This is very relevant to everyday life, and we need to be familiar with that. With this, I want to give Gerald the chance to speak on his views. Gerald also, in his lifetime, has gone from one profession to another. He has worked around the world, and thanks to what we do, we basically, Gerald and I'm in Canada, he's in Australia. We work 24/7, and sometimes I'm speaking to him at 3 in the morning. Sometimes he's speaking at 3 in the morning with me. This is our normal. So our view of the world is a bit different from ordinary people that work in one jurisdiction. What are your views, Gerald, on those points?
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, this sort of forum, without going online like this, wouldn't be possible a few years ago. People wouldn't participate, and we've learned that by running our seminars online. It was a big change, but what a positive change. The idea that you don't have to actually go somewhere. Otherwise, we wouldn't have half the people. I wouldn't have half the quarter the speakers if we had to get together physically, and this works fine. But what I've liked, I think what went well with the LIAMforum and what distinguishes from other forums is the breadth and the variety. What I've learned during my life is humans have a tendency to group together with like-minded other humans. Geologists stick with geologists. Even sustainability people stick with sustainability people. And it's very easy to stick with people, like-minded people. It's human nature, because you agree, you have similar views, and you have special interest groups, you have forums on specific subjects. You even have a renewable energy forum, and people in renewable energy get into that. But we've been broader than that this week. There's many issues out there, and it's the breadth and the interconnectivity that is the opportunity that remains. Now, I did some change management in the 1990s, and change management in those days was about breaking down the silos within the company, getting people from finance to communicate and work with people from marketing and operations, and we've made a business in Whittle Consulting of breaking down the silos and doing an integrated mine planning approach, getting the geologists, the mining engineers, the metallurgists, the finance people, and the human resources people to actually work together for the first time, because they tend to sit in their own groups. And then more recently, it's only 5 years or so, the recognition that we have silos outside the company as well. We have silos in the government, in the community, in the First Nations, in the environmental world, and so forth. And the biggest opportunity is to get those people to cooperate. And the ESG movement is doing that. And I think the next frontier is actually cooperate between industries. Well, why do we say I'm in the mining industry? I'm in the agricultural industry, and so forth. There's so much to learn from each other. And I think that's the next frontier. And I don't know how to address that and get that cooperation going. But I think that's so what I liked about this week is the breadth, because it is the interconnectivity where the opportunities lie. And they're sometimes not obvious. Well, if they're obvious, we would have already done them. And that's what distinguishes this forum. So I think that went really well, and the willingness for people to sit there and listen to a subject they wouldn't normally have an interest in, but just for a few hours, just have a listen, and it makes sense. You get it if you take the time to be inquisitive and open-minded.
Yeah. For the next subject, Justin, are you online?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Also, why don't you join us on the panel, because you've been instrumental in helping us, and Virginia can also join us. Well, we have a tiny team, and Gerald and I look at each other and we just chuckle, because we've accomplished miracles with this tiny team. And I have to pinch myself, because I don't know how we got here.
I'll point out a zero budget.
There was the word budget didn't show up in all the planning. Yep. We just did it.
We haven't spent a cent.
So it is brilliant. So the reason, so what do we do now? We are going to edit the videos of the various panels. So it'll remove the empty spaces, fix the sound, and so on, so they can be used and reused by people. Because as Liette mentioned, I learned a lot from listening to people. There's in subjects that I knew a little bit, but just enough to be dangerous. And we had experts actually presenting on very technical subjects in a very good way. The panels today on mentoring and championing were spectacular. The panel on careers, for the first time ever, I think we put together the various industry organizations for mining, for environmental jobs, and for energy jobs. Those three organizations had been in their own silo. They had never spoken together, although their mandate is to reach out to young people. We all need to work together in facilitating for young people access to this information. We are not going to get them to do it, but at least we can make it easier for them to have the information at hand so they can make their own decisions. And this is the big discovery of the LIAMforum. There is a very big gap, and this gap is being filled by amateurs. I'm an amateur in this area. We're all amateurs. We need to make it better and more communicable. So we mentioned the videos. We'll be working on that. Justin and Virginia will probably be in the loop. Whittle Consulting will be assisting with that to make sure it happens, and hopefully we'll do it in the next few weeks. The next point is the idea of the ebook. We have experts on the future of work speaking at the conference, Gary Bolles has a huge audience around the world, and he's a true expert in his field. What comes to mind is creating a manual, a booklet, or a resource for young people to go to one place and quickly go through the various bits of information and have actionable contacts where they can follow up. And it's going to take some work, but the way I look at it, this will be I wish I had that when I was an undergraduate. It just didn't exist. It was by random chance you saw a brochure or you met somebody. This will put everything that all the information we had at the LIAMforum basically in one drawer, one electronic drawer. I'm not sure what the format is like, but I'm going to start writing a little memo on that, and we'll spread it and start working on that. Let me have your views on those topics, please.
I can probably say that I think there are so many products that we can do from this. Ebook is one thing, but as I said, info sheets would be good, like one on why do you need to keep opportunities to acquire new skills, one on why creativity is so important, all these type of things. But I was thinking also, especially for some of them, it would be nice to have their testimonials, because testimonials, how they got there, but also like today, especially with our students, why they went that way, why they decided to volunteer, why they decided to do these things, because I think it would help a lot. I think we have to also think about probably putting an article in the conversation, for example, about this forum, why it started, why it's important, and what it can be. I really like the idea also of high school. And I was thinking, how can we partner, for example, with Let's Talk Science, because they are the one who are doing that virtually already. So we can certainly probably enhance this possibility at this level. I think it has to continue in so many ways.
Thank you, Liette. Anybody else?
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think the format of the LIAMforum is absolutely perfectly suited to what Liette and what you're saying, because all of our information is stored in approximately 50 or 1 hour little chunks of digestible matter with a purpose, a content, a discussion. I think Liette's idea of maybe getting some testimonials from some of the speakers in there would be fabulous. We asked our alumni to contribute and say, how did you like this? And I think then we do need to, once that's all wrapped up, we do need to publicize it. And I think we need to make it especially accessible to, well, it's on the web, so it'll be accessible to anyone. But I think we need to make an effort to include remote communities and you know, the Canadian Arctic. You and I had a conversation with Paul earlier, a friend of mine in Iqaluit, and you know, this is the sort of information that they would really appreciate, because it's very difficult for them to access that kind of information. And paradoxically, those are the communities that are going to benefit most from resources, from resource extraction, from development of that. So yes, all of those are excellent choices.
Justin or Virginia?
Well, for me, expansion is growing the team. Like, there's probably 100 to 1,000 students out there that saw this and said, that's a great project, I should be involved in that. If LIAMforum is going to grow, we need to think about who can we bring onto the team, because the booklets, the videos, all those things that happen after the concerts require capital resources, whether that's financial support from the university or corporations around the world, or human capital for volunteers. All of that will allow us to expand in new ways, because we need to grow, and we deserve to grow, because this was such a success and changed so many things in our industry. So I think there's probably a lot of people out there that said, this is time for me to be involved in this. So that would be the conversations I'd love to see next.
Okay, and what about you, Virginia? You've been instrumental in making this happen.
Yes, well, I've been happy to be here, definitely. I came on not very long ago, and to see where it started then and where it's come now, it's extravagant, I guess is the word I'd like to use. But for myself, I am really someone new, I guess you would say, to the industry, because this isn't something that isn't my background. So I can kind of speak to that, having sat here and listened to everybody speak over the last 5 days. I just feel like it's something, like you've said, Raziel, it's lacking in the industry for young professionals, where they're starting out their careers. They have an idea, they have a passion, they're obviously going towards a goal, but sometimes in that process you can get a little bit lost and not really know where to go. And I feel like having something like this organized not just for this industry, but for multiple different industries, to be able to give those resources to people that are starting out, to see where people started and where they've come, to hear their advice and everything. It's something I feel like a lot of people are lacking, because it can be overwhelming coming from high school to go into what you think is a career path. And to have this, I feel like myself, if I was going into this industry, I would feel so inspired and so excited really to start my path. And you've given such a resource to everybody all over, from all different aspects, that they can kind of really get a good gauge of what they would like to do. I'm sure during the 5 days, there's, at least for me, there's been a lot of speakers that have really intrigued me, and I want to look into it further myself. And I'm sure that someone starting out as well has felt the same way. So definitely think it was needed, and it was a great conference. And I think many years to come, this would benefit for anybody, really.
Yeah, so I think we need to regard what's happened this week as just the seed information. If you think about, for example, terrific, successful organisation, the TED Talks, it's not the 200 people who are sitting in the TED Talk that it's all about. It's the tens of thousands of people who watch those videos over the years that follow, and the blogs and the discussions and the contribute. So I think the recordings of these sessions are just the seed information that something is going to be huge. And yes, run another event in another 12 months' time, but there's a lot of activity to make the most of what we've captured this week and build on that. So, I mean, this is the working group. We'll be back together next week saying, right, we've got to get these videos up on YouTube. We need a website, a discussion group, maybe several threads, but not breaking, but keep it general and so forth, to capitalize it and treat this as the seed, not this is not it until next year. And back to the point that was made earlier, the key, I think, in getting young people involved in anything is that spark of inspiration. And what we've learned, I've listened to some amazing people this week about what drives people, and it's finding a sense of purpose, that you have a role and you have a reason. You have something to contribute. And we sort of push kids through school, and they, you know, they turn up and you tell them off if they're late and they don't do their homework and everything. And hang on a moment, we've got to find that moment where they see that they've got something important for them. I remember witnessing, if I can tell a personal story, watching that point for my daughter, who's an animal lover, and she was hovering in year 10, you know, so as a 15-year-old, between becoming an artist to draw animals or doing something else with animals. And we went to Melbourne University, and watched a presentation by the head of the veterinary science. And I saw it happen that moment. That's what I want to do. And I turned to her, I said, well, you better get off your backside. And she ended up doing 7 years of study, got a doctorate in science and et cetera. And she was almost an artist. And I'm thinking it was that moment that, how do we get that inspiration into the young people? And I think it is to expose them to things. And I think it is a lot earlier than somebody postgraduate. It's got to be earlier than that.
Yeah.
So they can get excited about it. And it's not just see something exciting, because they see that on the movies every day, but see something where they feel they can contribute in whatever their unique way is. And there's room for all sorts of uniqueness, as we've seen. What a variety of people we've seen. Anyway, that's my comment. So I think this is just the start. This is the seed. And we've all got some work to do in the next 12 months and thereafter.
Thank you very much, Gerald. That's very much provides a broad platform. So we will probably meet in a week. We need to discuss very quickly where we're going to be doing the videos. Justin will be instrumental in coordinating with whichever outside entity does that. But I do want to look at the dates. I was having the LIAMforum in the middle of Yom Kippur week wasn't the brightest discovery. A friend of mine who is not Jewish, I was talking to him in the States, and he said, Raziel, do you realize Yom Kippur falls right in the middle of the week? And I said, no. So we rolled with the punches. And it was by coincidence that I was not on any of the panels. I did not plan it. On the Yom Kippur day, I realized the day before that, oh, I don't have to be there, so I'll take the day off. So anyway, so that's where we are. I think, so what are the next steps? We'll have a meeting next week. Yeah, and Justin mentioned Rob McEwen's words that the biggest goldmine in the world is between your ears. Literally, it is young people's wealth. They'll be in charge, and we need to basically help them, and they'll decide which route they want to take. So we'll be concluding shortly. If anybody has any more comments, otherwise we will be running. We have a video from the Ontario Minister of Mines. We will run that, and then I'll say some concluding words, and we'll wrap it up. I want to thank you deeply. We've been in this together for a long time. This has been a very difficult year for my wife and myself, and will continue to be. But we've managed to generate something that's going to help a lot of young people, and us also. So thank you.
Before I begin, I want to start by acknowledging that I am speaking to you from the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the area covered by Treaty 13, also known as the Toronto Purchase, and I pay my respects to them. Indigenous peoples continue to care for this land. They continue to shape Ontario today, and I want to show my respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they are still relevant today. I also want to pay my respects to the LIAMforum. It's an honor and really a pleasure to be able to ask to speak on this. I know Liam was a very dedicated, energetic individual that was incredibly interested in sustainable development. I want to tell you a little bit about who I am. My family's been involved in mining for well over 100 years in the Timmins area. I was born and raised in the mine site village of Dome and Domex, and there's still a member of my family, my son, that's employed in the mining industry in the Timmins area. I was lucky enough to come through the ranks of the operations and ended up being CFO of Plastidome Canada, the CEO of Plastidome Canada, and an EVP of Placer Dome and presidency of breakwaters and resources on many boards through my career, and in international mining space. So when you talk about sustainable development, then these aren't abstract concepts to me. These are concepts that we've been working since the late 80s and the early 1990s. I think it was in the Rio conference, UN conference in 1992, that they first coined the term sustainable development. And sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So one of the things that we talked about in relation to this LIAMforum was the legacy of mines. And certainly when you talk about the legacy of mining over 100 years ago, as if you can think of any major industry, there was a lot that people wouldn't have been proud of, and mining is no different. Now, over those years, we improved even before exceptionally. Without terms like without sustainable development, we were redoing the tailings deposits. I mean, the regreening of Sudbury began in the 60s. But I think when we first became exposed to terms like sustainable development, it caused us to think about exactly these definitions that we're talking about. And you realize sustainable development really means there's three pillars. They're based on three pillars: the environmental pillar, the social pillar, and the economic pillar. And when you unpackage the definition of sustainable development, you think about things like generation, the present generation. Well, obviously, even in Placer Dome in the late 80s and the early 90s, we had left out the indigenous peoples. They weren't a big part of the economic in the economy that we typically call mining. And it was in the late 80s and the early 90s that we began a huge educational push to really discover what our past was. We studied things like the Indian Act, which is a racist act. We took a look at how the treaties were formed. It's very important that these kids that we're talking to today, these kids that are involved going to school right now, understand when those treaties were first signed. There was a government representative that their job was to specifically choose the land that the reservations were going to be set up, especially in Northern Ontario, that had no economic potential. So it's it was very critical to and important that we understood exactly how we ended up being where we are right now. So consequently, we did things that changed that relationships with the Indigenous people. The Musselwhite Agreement was one of those agreements. Signatory for five Indigenous nations. That was transformational. We had our first VP of Sustainable Development. That was Jim Cooney, and that was in the early 90s. So we were already changing and had been working aggressively on our understanding of what sustainable development was. We worked very closely with the Indigenous people and certainly followed the development when we talk about the duty to consult, and that was Beverly McLaughlin was the superior judge or Supreme Court justice that ruled on this. So we worked through this as we worked through the understanding what the duty to consult was. So these are not esoteric or abstract concepts to us. These were real concepts that we were working with. Sustainable development was something that was a verb. It wasn't a noun. You can think about the concept of future generations and focus on unpack that word needs. Needs change over time, and you can see what we're talking about right now in 2022, and it's been a focus for a number of years before that, about climate change. Now, obviously, that means we're decarbonizing our economy. We're moving away from fossil fuels. We're moving to electrification of our grids. You can see this is exactly what the province of Ontario is doing right now as we move to that battery technology, the green economy. It really is the basis of our critical mineral strategy, which marries the mineral potential of Northern Ontario with the manufacturing might in Southern Ontario. And this was just enrolled in March of April last year. And if you fully understand what we're doing there, you understand that we can't be sustainable, we can't be green without mining. All these minerals that are required to transform the economy have to be mined. And we've got what the world needs in Ontario, in Northern Ontario, from a minerals point of view. That's why we put that critical mineral strategy together. We can't meet our objectives on climate change. We can't meet our energy goals. We can't meet the greening economy without mining these minerals. The other part about this is how are we doing this? How are we mining? Well, you can't think that you're going to be sustainable if in fact you're going to use fossil fuels as you extract these minerals that are critical minerals to attain the new economy. So, we've built mines like the Borden mine that are all electric. You can't process your minerals if you're still going to be a large emitter of CO2. Vale is spending $1.2 billion to eliminate CO2 from their Sudbury operations. So these are very active and real concepts to attain sustainable development. And quite frankly, we can't be sustainable economy. We can't achieve sustainable development without mining. Mining is actually it's essential and it's critical to achieve the goals in sustainable development. We have to mine. We have to mine these minerals. We have to mine these ethically. We have to mine these. We have to mine these minerals environmentally in an environmentally sustainable way, and we know how to do that. Another perfect example. As we've improved our operations, I'll go back to the Musselwhite Agreement. Our discharge water is actually cleaner than our intake water. This is how good we become from an environmental point of view, and we'll continue to get better. But and I want to speak these words are meant directly to the people in this audience that are young people going to university right now. Your future is absolutely exciting. It's unbelievably how exciting this is going to be for you to be a part of transforming the economy around you, right here in Southern Ontario and Northern Ontario. Mining is really a part of the solution when you talk about sustainable development. One of the other big pillars in our critical mineral strategy, of course, is the economic development with the Indigenous peoples. And the Indigenous peoples, I've met the chiefs in these communities. They want their kids to stay there. They want the communities to grow. They want to see the economy development in those communities, and that can only happen if, in fact, mining happens. And that's why they support the development. And we can mine sustainably. You can't have sustainable development without mining. You can't be a green economy without mining. Your future is exciting. You should be very proud to be part of the future. You're part of the solution. So that's what mining is all about. It's part of the solution. You're part of it. We're part of it. And I'm pleased to be working with this on this concept of sustainable development with the people here that I'm talking about today. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. So with that, we come to the end of the LIAMforum 2022, inspired by my son Liam Jacob, And this forum really is a continuation of the conversations I had with him. But now we have the conversation with people around the world. So let's move on and let's get on with the program. And we'll see you soon in further conversations. Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody who contributed to the creation of the LIAMforum and who participated as a speaker and as a presenter, and particularly so as well to the audience around the world. Thank you very much, and good morning or good night, wherever you may be. Thank you.